I'm back like cook crack. Flashback Friday pod, fresh out the oven for y'all ass. And I'm going to tell y'all, this one was something that you guys conjured up essentially. And I just was a dog, with the bone essentially, and I couldn't let it go. And this was actually pretty fun. So this was something that was brought up yesterday, and I turned it into an entire episode of the Louie Tee Network podcast that starts now. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie Tee? Welcome to the 325th installment of the Louie Tee Network podcast. I, of course, am your host, Louie Tee. Thank you for joining me. So we got a Flashback Friday pod. Haven't done this in a while. The season gets hectic, hard to flash back, hard to throw it back and give y'all a little bit of that flavor that y'all yearn for. I love flashing it back. And in the off season, there's a lot more time to be able to do this. And so here we are. We're flashing it back on this Friday. So we'll get in, we'll get out, and I'll let you get on with your weekend. But before we do that, let's talk some ball. And so let's jump into the Gem Droppin Session. I don't want to delay. I want to get straight to the proceedings this evening. Off we go. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie Tee. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So I told you guys that in my estimation, Jalen Carter is going to be a first top 10 pick. Okay. There's been a lot of speculation about his draft stock. Obviously, he had the situation at Georgia where he was racing with a fellow teammate. That teammate subsequently crashed his car. He passed away. So did the passenger in his vehicle. And so Carter was at the combine when he was served and went and turned himself in. And people felt like that was going to impact his draft stock. When you're talented, you get opportunities to make amends for mistakes. He's talented. If Jalen Carter were a fringe day 3 pick, 6th, 7th rounder, barely probably wouldn't get drafted. He is the best player potentially in this entire draft class when it's all said and done. From a talent perspective, you'd be hard-pressed to find a guy more talented with more upside than Jalen Carter. Teams aren't just going to allow that to pass by the wayside, okay? They're not going to just say, you know what? I'm not dealing with him. If he had done something reprehensible, then we would have had a discussion. It would have been a similar situation to Lyle Collins, who was going to be a first-round pick, more likely than not, and ended up falling to the 7th round, I think. 4th round, I don't remember, but he wasn't a day 1 or 2 pick. That's for sure. We've seen crazy things happen, right before the draft, the Warren Sapp situation, the Laramie Tunsil situation. Those both were surrounding weed, however. This is a little different, but from all reports, and I can't confirm nor deny what this guy's character is off the field. We've heard conflicting reports about, a lot of people jumped on Todd McShay because McShay knew about the situation at Georgia before anybody else did. He kept his mouth shut, but he said there are some character concerns with this kid, and people jumped down Todd McShay's throat. And Todd took it on the chin. He didn't say anything. And then when the news came out, a lot of people were Mike Jackson moonwalking. And I don't think a lot of people issued apologies that should have, who were attacking Todd McShay. Gotta give credit to Todd McShay for taking the high road on that one. However, I can't speak to whether he's a good dude or not. I've heard good things about him. When Todd McShay made the post about, hey, there are some character concerns, some issues off the field with this kid, a lot of people came to Jalen Carter's defense and started pointing out these situations where he's helping out fellow teammates and he's presenting him as this good dude. Maybe he is a really good dude. I can tell you that on the field, there has been this discussion about him potentially being lazy and there not being the effort that you want out of a top 10 pick. I can tell you from what I've watched, and again, I can't confirm nor deny what his work ethic is in the weight room and in practice and things of that nature. I can only tell you what I watched on the field on tape. I didn't see a guy half-assing it on any snaps. I saw a guy going 110% on just about every single snap. Now, there's plays where he gets his ass blocked and he conserves energy after he's blocked, but I saw a guy that was going balls to the wall. I didn't see a guy that was half-assing it on the backside of a play or loafing, from snap to snap. You didn't know if the motor was going to run hot or cold. I didn't see that. Now, I did see a guy that got into some altercations before games on multiple occasions, and I don't know what that says about him. Is he a head case? Maybe. It didn't bode well for him when at the Georgia Pro Day, he couldn't finish his workout. He was out of shape. He was 9 pounds heavier than he had came in at the combine. He wasn't able to finish his workout. And that led people to believe that, hey, maybe this guy is going to slide. And I came on this podcast the very next day after that happened, and I told you guys, don't believe the hype. Okay, it's Lion season. If I'm Seattle, if I'm Chicago, if I'm the Eagles, especially the Eagles, I'm spreading all kinds of malicious rumors. I'm talking about how lazy this dude is. I'm putting all of that shit out into the atmosphere. This Lion season. I'm positioning myself to get me a top 3 player in this draft at 10. I told anybody that would listen, this brother is going in the top 10. Don't believe the hype, okay? A talent like Jalen Carter doesn't fall very far. All it takes is one team to say, hey, man, you fine by me. Come on, man, join my squad. Teams want to win. And not all the time do they take into consideration the moral code. Not to say that this dude's a bad guy, again. But if it's something that we can kind of just sweep it under the rug, that's what they're going to do. So when the report came out yesterday that Jalen Carter is receiving top 10 interest from the following teams: Seattle at 5, Chicago at 9, and the Eagles at 10, I said, and? And? This is exactly what I want, what I expected. And I'm not shocked. Seattle is definitely in the mix. And being that the Seahawks have 2 first-round picks, 5 and 20, they don't have to take a quarterback at 5. Unless they absolutely love the guy, they don't have to take a quarterback at 5. They can take Jalen Carter at 5 and then double back and get a quarterback at 20, if they so choose. Or they could just not take a quarterback at all in the first round and take one later in the draft, or not take a quarterback at all this year in the draft. It's their choice. They've got options. The Bears need help up front desperately. They fortified the linebacker position with the moves made in free agency. Their secondary is young, talented, and hungry. I love that group that they've put together. Now they just need players that can help them, A, stop the run, and B, get pressure on the quarterback. Jalen Carter can do both. There are plenty of edge rushers in this year's draft class. They'll get one, maybe two, but there aren't any more Jalen Carters in this draft. I assure you of that. Okay. So I can't see him getting past 9. If he gets past 5, unless somebody decides to jump up, and I would assume that if I'm a team like Vegas, Atlanta, especially Atlanta, if I'm looking to maximize my draft value, move back, not even have to move back many spots, pick up some draft capital, there will be interest in someone to come up and get a falling Jalen Carter in the top 10. Right now, Atlanta's pick, not much of a hot spot. Let Jalen Carter slip past the Vegas Raiders at 7. And I'd venture to say that all of a sudden, Atlanta's phone probably starts ringing. Hey, how you feel about moving out of 8? How far back we talking? Now, of course, they'll already know with whomever they pick up the phone with. But it'll be interesting to see if some teams decide, hey, I'm willing to take the risk on this kid. Get in front of, Chicago to do it. We'll see what happens. I contended all along, and I still contend. And just like I do with the number 3 overall pick with Arizona, somebody's going to trade up to get a quarterback there. Jalen Carter is going in the top 10 of this year's draft. I believe that firmly. Anyway, I digress. So let's transition to our throwback, our flashback Friday portion of the show. And remember when. Yes. Y'all couldn't hear that, but I could. I heard the intro. I heard the soft background music playing. Yeah. That's when I got to put on my smooth jazz 105.3 voice on y'all. Yeah, we're going to throw it back. So, yesterday on the Washington show, my Command Post live show last night, it was a great show. Had a ton of fun. We chopped it up for damn near 4 hours. And one of the super chats from last night's show was from my guy, Twin D. Shout out to my guy, Twin D. I love, and this is why I love the community that we have cultivated, because it's thought-provoking. And Twin D put out a super chat last night that forced me to go out and do what I'm about to do right now. Twin D said last night in his super chat, because we had a preliminary discussion about quarterbacks being the top 2 picks, or, bunched together, 2 guys that are lumped together in a draft or more, 2 or 3 quarterbacks lumped together. These are the guys that are the cream of the crop of this year's draft class of quarterbacks, and the lack of success. We had talked about that, I want to say, on the podcast yesterday, and then we took that conversation that we briefly discussed, and we really went and had a conversation about it on the Washington show last night. And Twin D said, I went and I looked, and because I think the year I threw out was 83. That's the quote unquote quarterback draft. That's the year that 6 quarterbacks went in the first round. No NFL draft has had more quarterbacks go in the first round than 1983. Let's see if I can name them. Elway, Todd Blackledge, Tony Eason. I always forget one of them. Jim Kelly, Dan Marino. This is the one I always forget. think he played for the Jets too. I never remember his name. I'm missing one. Anyway, 6 quarterbacks went in the first round in 1983. And I said, since 83, when we've had a discussion about 2 guys at the top of a draft at the quarterback position, or really, Tony, my guy Twin D, said since 83, because that was the year that I threw out there. No one, usually one of those quarterbacks, if not both of them, end up being busts. Somebody's not going to make it. Ken O'Brien. Thank you, Kevin, the PRF. Ken O'Brien, and he did play for the Jets, and I always forget him in that group. Always forget Ken O'Brien. Always, always, always. 6. So I took it upon myself to go all the way back to the merger of 1970, when the AFL and the NFL merged together and created one big league. And since then, 1970s draft was the first draft that happened after the NFL AFL merger. I went down and I looked at every single draft from 1970 to present day. And here's the criteria that I came up with for this particular discussion. The 2 quarterbacks or more in question have to be within the first 7 picks of the draft. They cannot be separated by any more than 3 picks unless both quarterbacks are in the top 5. So an example would be one went 1 overall, the other went 5th overall. That's separated by more than 3 picks, 4 picks, but they both went in the top 5, so I'll allow it. Since 1970, we've had this happen with the quarterback position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 times. Okay, so 70, so 80, 90, 2000, 10, 20. You're talking 53 this coming year, 53 years worth of drafts. And only 17 times have multiple quarterbacks gone in the top 7 that weren't separated by no more than 3 picks. And of the 17 times, only 4 can you say that multiple quarterbacks, both or all 3, were successful in the league. And one of those times, it's a bit of a stretch, but I'm going to allow it. Let's go through this exercise. So in 1970, the first year that I started keeping tabs, the NFL merger, the NFL draft in 1970 produced 2 quarterbacks in the top 3. Terry Bradshaw, selected number 1 overall by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Mike Phipps, selected 3rd overall by the Cleveland Browns. Phipps' career, by all accounts, was modest, but you select the guy 3rd overall, you can't turn in the career Mike Phipps turned in and consider it a success. He was a bust. Bradshaw, obviously one of the most successful quarterbacks in NFL history, won 4 Super Bowls, yada, yada, yada. So we know he's successful, but the other guy wasn't. That's usually how this goes. If either of them are successful. 1971, the very next year, you had 3 quarterbacks go in the top 3 of the draft. It was the first time that it happened in the Super Bowl era this way. Jim Plunkett went number 1 overall to the then Boston Patriots. They were not the New England Patriots then. Archie Manning, father of Eli and Peyton Manning, went number 2 overall to the New Orleans Saints. And Dan Pastorini went 3rd overall to the Houston Oilers. Okay. Now, Plunkett was considered a bust initially. When he was selected by the Patriots, it did not work. They traded him to the San Francisco 49ers, who he had a little bit of success there, but not a ton. He then moved on to the Raiders and was a backup quarterback there for a number of years. I think 2 years before finally getting an opportunity to start, and ended up winning the Super Bowl in 1980. So Plunkett's career ultimately ended up being a success, but it didn't start out that way. Archie Manning, I'm going to let this slide because he's so lovable. Everybody loves Archie Manning. If his name wasn't Manning and his name was Archibald Tanner, he'd be ass. You look at his career numbers. He played in New Orleans for a total of 10 seasons. He played in the league for 12 years. 10 of them, his first 10, were spent as the starting quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. 9 of them were losing seasons. Okay, 9 out of the 10 were losing seasons. By our count, he was ass. However, the Saints organization as a whole was ass. And if not for Archie Manning, they would have been the laughing stock of the NFL probably. So I'll give him a pass. He was okay. He wasn't a bust. Dan Pastorini, modest career, more success probably than Archie Manning in terms of winning. He actually played in a Super Bowl that Dan Pastorini lost. Or actually, he got to an AFC championship game and lost in controversial fashion. He actually did win a Super Bowl, but as a backup quarterback. He passes the eyeball test as well. One of the funny things about going back, I want to say this, I want to mention this now, is one, how devalued the quarterback position was in those days, because the run game was such a prevalent part of the game of football. It was the most important part. The running back was the more important position in those days. And so you saw more running backs go number 1 overall or offensive linemen than you did quarterbacks. Quarterbacks weren't valued as highly in those days because it was not a passing league then. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, the thing that I noticed was, boy, did these quarterbacks get a lot of time. And boy, did teams turn the football over at a very high rate. You look at these numbers, and you'd be hard-pressed to find, quarterbacks in the 70s that had a touchdown to interception ratio of just 1-to-1. Okay, just 1-to-1. Normally it's more interceptions than touchdowns. All right, you're talking about in certain instances a 1-to-2 ratio from touchdown to interception. Teams didn't take care of the football, and there wasn't a lot of emphasis being put on taking care of the football. But anyway, and I actually admire their ability to stick with quarterbacks, the stick-to-itiveness of these teams to stick with a quarterback to give him time. That doesn't happen anymore. But anyway, I digress. So now you don't get another draft where 2 quarterbacks are taken within the top 5 or 7 until 1982. Again, just understand that the quarterback position wasn't valued. So we go from 71 all the way to 82 before you get another draft where 2 quarterbacks are selected within the top 7. Art Schlichter, 4th overall to the Baltimore Colts. Jim McMahon, 5th overall to the Chicago Bears. Now, Art Schlichter ended up having gambling issues, going to prison. His career was derailed by his gambling woes. Okay, struggled with gambling pretty much his entire playing career, and even post-career struggled with gambling. He lasted in the league all of 3 years, did Art Schlichter. Okay, Jim McMahon, on the other hand, won a Super Bowl with the Chicago Bears, and had a very successful NFL career. So again, another situation where one quarterback is successful, the other not so much. 1993. So you go from 82 all the way to 93 before you get two quarterbacks selected in the top 5 or 7 of the NFL draft. And it's Drew Bledsoe, number 1 overall to the New England Patriots, followed by Rick Mirer, selected number 2 overall to the Seattle Seahawks. And I remember this very vividly. This is when I really started to hone in on football as my favorite sport, because before then it was basketball. And I was a big Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan. Right around the Rick Mirer, Jerome Bettis days is when I really started to become a huge Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan. And he got selected by Seattle and he stunk it up. Now, he ended up lasting in the league like 10, 11 years, did Rick Mirer. Drafted in 93. I think his last game was like 04, 03, 04, somewhere in there. But he was a backup primarily after, getting an opportunity in Seattle. And then I think he got another opportunity to start in LA with the Raiders. That didn't work. And then after that, he was pretty much a backup. He's considered one of the biggest NFL busts in history. And Drew Bledsoe, we know, number 1 overall, played in a Super Bowl, was a really good quarterback from multiple NFL franchises, highly successful NFL career. So again, another situation. One quarterback's really good, the other not so good. 94, the very next year, Heath Shuler goes 3rd overall to the Washington Redskins, and Trent Dilfer goes 6th overall to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Neither of these quarterbacks ended up being very good. Shuler was considered one of the biggest busts in NFL history. Meanwhile, Trent Dilfer did win a Super Bowl. So you say he had modest success in his career, but we all know Trent Dilfer was really a passenger on that 2000s Ravens football team. But in any event, again, another situation, you could give Dilfer the nod and say he was okay. He won a Super Bowl, hung in the league for a little while. Heath Shuler stunk. Absolutely garbage. The very next year after that, 1995. So you start to see teams valuing the quarterback position more now as we get into the 90s. 95, Steve McNair, taken 3rd overall by the Houston Oilers. 5th overall, Kerry Collins, selected by the Carolina Panthers. If you remember, 95 was the first year of both the Carolina Panthers and the Jacksonville Jaguars. They were expansion teams in 95. Kerry Collins was the first pick of the Carolina Panthers. They selected Kerry Collins. Both of them had successful careers. Both of them played in Super Bowls. This is another example of 2 quarterbacks going in the top 5 or 7. In this case, top 5 being successful. It's only the second time. I gave 71 with Jim Plunkett, Archie Manning, and Dan Pastorini the nod. Easily could have not given it the nod, but I did in 95 with McNair and Kerry Collins. Okay. So now we go to 98. This is when my brain really activated when I first was presented with this yesterday, right? First 2 guys I went to, Manning and Leaf, because in my lifetime, I think that's the biggest 1 or 2 debate that we've ever had. I know a lot of you may not have even been born yet. Some of you weren't. Some of you were too small to remember. But for those of us who are around, I don't think there was ever a greater debate over who to take 1 or 2 in NFL draft history. And I'll just tell you, I was flat out wrong, because I was Team Ryan Leaf back in 98 when he was coming out of Washington State. I was flat out wrong. He was the better athlete. I thought he had the better arm. Manning's arm wasn't all that strong. As we saw, he was an anticipation quarterback. Leaf had, to me, the stronger arm. He was the better athlete. He could create off schedule. Before that was really even a thing. And so I just thought he'd be the better prospect. Boy, was I wrong. Peyton Manning, 1st overall to the Indianapolis Colts. Ryan Leaf, second overall to the San Diego Chargers. We all know how that went. Manning goes on to be one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. Meanwhile, Ryan Leaf turned out to be one of the biggest busts in NFL history. So, again, another instance of one of those quarterbacks not panning out. You go to 1999, and this was at the time, the second highest quarterback first round output in NFL history at the time. 83 being the highest still to this day, with 6 quarterbacks going in the first round. 99 produced 5 quarterbacks in the first round, 3 of which went 1, 2, 3 in the top 5. So Tim Couch, first overall out of Kentucky to the Cleveland Browns. Donovan McNabb, second overall to the Philadelphia Eagles out of Syracuse. And Akili Smith, third overall to the Cincinnati Bengals. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, Dante Culpepper was one of the other quarterbacks, and I can't remember who the other quarterback was. He wasn't very good, though. It was really only McNabb and Culpepper who came out of that draft as being any good. But anyway, I digress. Clearly, Tim Couch wasn't successful in the league. Neither was Akili Smith. They both had their moments, but they weren't successful. Donovan McNabb is the only guy in that conglomerate there that had any success. And he, to me, which I think is somewhat criminal to this point, is a Hall of Fame quarterback, but he's not in right now. Maybe he'll get in eventually. But Donovan McNabb, to me, without a doubt, was the one guy in that group. The other two, not very good. So again, another instance where you get a number of quarterbacks taken in the top 5 of a draft, and only one of those guys succeeds. You go to 2002, and you find David Carr, the older brother of Derek Carr. David Carr out of Houston. Remember, 2002 was the year where the NFL finally got an even number of teams that split the divisions into an equal number, 8 divisions, 4 teams in each division. The Texans completed the cipher as an expansion team in 2002, and their very first selection was quarterback David Carr out of Houston. And then Joey Harrington out of Oregon was the 3rd overall selection in the 2002 draft to the Detroit Lions. Both of them were absolutely horrid. Now, David Carr, unfortunately, I thought there were moments where he was really good. The Texans really did him a disservice. They got him beat up, and to the point where he started seeing ghosts. He wasn't the same guy. He started to panic, and he lost confidence. You could tell. After the beating that he took those first 2 or 3 years in Houston behind a shoddy offensive line, he got his brains bashed in, and he wasn't the same guy. Harrington just wasn't very good. He wasn't consistent. A lot of turnovers, so forth and so forth. Neither one of those guys were any good. Then you get to 2004. And I remember, because I brought this up yesterday, this was another one of the situations that I said, this is one where you had success with both guys. Eli Manning goes first overall to the San Diego Chargers, but immediately tells the Chargers, I will not play for your franchise. Trade me to the New York Giants. Meanwhile, Phillip Rivers, selected out of NC State, 4th overall by the New York Giants. As we all know, the 2 teams swap quarterbacks, and the rest is history. Both wildly successful in the league. Eli Manning, 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback. Phillip Rivers, one of the most prolific quarterbacks of his era. Both will end up in Canton eventually. And so that goes down as the 3rd instance where 2 quarterbacks were taken in the top 5 or 7, in this case, top 5, and both were successful. Okay. They joined 1995, or 2004 joins 1995 and 1971. Okay. So now we go to 2009. Matthew Stafford is taken 1st overall by the Detroit Lions, and Mark Sanchez, aka Dirty Chez, is taken 5th overall by the New York Jets. Now, We could debate this one if you wanted to. I don't feel like debating. I think Dirty Chez's career, if you want to say it was modest and he wasn't a bust, okay, he played in 2 AFC championship games, right? To me, Mark Sanchez stunk. All right. Matter of fact, I want to check out his career numbers real fast. And I want to see if his touchdown to interception ratio is at least 1-to-1. I'll cut him a break and I'll give them the nod here. I don't think it is, though. But I'm going to check right now and see what Mark Sanchez's touchdown to interception. Oh, it's close. 86 touchdowns, 89 interceptions. Ouch. Sorry, you lose. I win. So, Dirty Chez is dirty for a reason. He wasn't successful. When you draft a guy 5th overall, look, again, he went to 2 AFC championship games. You got to give him credit for that. But he's still Dirty Chez. What more can I say? Meanwhile, Matthew Stafford, Super Bowl winning quarterback, probably going to go to the Hall of Fame when his career is all said and done. Set numerous records for the Detroit Lions franchise. And we know what his career has been. So another example, I feel like, and again, we could argue about Dirty Chez if you'd like, but I'm not in the mood to argue. I think Dirty Chez stinks. Another situation where one guy turned out to be really good, the other not so good. 2012, this is another one. This wasn't a debatable situation where, should the Colts take Andrew Luck or Robert Griffin III? There was really no debate here. We knew 1 and 2. Okay, we just didn't know who was going to be making the selection at 2 because the Rams held the 2nd pick in the draft. They had taken Sam Bradford the year before, so they didn't need a quarterback. You get my drift. Anyway, Andrew Luck goes number 1 overall to the Indianapolis Colts. Robert Griffin III ends up going 2nd overall to the Washington Redskins. Griffin actually wins NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, which is ironic. But then ultimately never matches the success of his rookie season and is out of the league, I think, 4 years after that, 3 years after that, maybe. Does get back into the league briefly with the Ravens for a couple of years as a backup, but that was it. So he's a bust. Andrew Luck, was one of the best quarterbacks. He was a shooting star, is what he ultimately was. In his brief NFL career, he took the Indianapolis Colts to the playoffs just about every year, took him to the AFC Championship game, I think in 2015, maybe. And then abruptly retired due to injuries. This was the Colts' fault. And some of it was Andrew's fault for not protecting himself better, but the Colts really left him out to dry with an offensive line that was less than stellar. But he was really good, not so much for Robert Griffin III. So another instance of one guy being really good, the other guy not so good. Jameis Winston in 2015, the number 1 overall pick, fresh off of just 2 years prior, winning a national championship with Florida State. And so he ended up being the number 1 overall pick in the 2015 NFL draft to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Marcus Mariota went the very next pick, 2nd overall in the 15 draft to the Tennessee Titans. Both of them have had lackluster careers. Mariota, I can't even give one the nod over the other. Jameis probably had the more prolific career to start. Mariota's actually been playing of late. Winston hasn't. So both of them stink. Call a spade a spade. So when you spend number 1 and number 2 respectively on quarterbacks, you expect more return on investment than those teams got. So again, another instance where you spend number 1 and number 2, and this is what we expect to happen in this year's draft. This is why this conversation even came up, because we expect the Carolina Panthers to select a quarterback. I think it's going to be CJ Stroud. It could be Bryce Young. I expect it to be one of the two. And then the Houston Texans sit right behind them, and we expect them to take a quarterback. We expect it to be the guy that doesn't get taken first, whether it's CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. And this is why we're having this conversation, because history tells us that one of those quarterbacks, if not both of them, are ultimately going to stink. And I'll explain why here in a second. I'm going to read a message that I got from my guy, Kevin, the PRF, that sheds more light on this. And I talked about this on a show earlier this year because our GM pretty much said the same thing. You want to know why a lot of these quarterbacks don't succeed? We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show, but let's continue with our exercise. 2016, Jared Goff goes first overall out of Cal to the Los Angeles Rams. If you recall, Rams traded up. The Titans, if I'm not mistaken, owned the number one pick that year, I think. Either the Titans did or the Browns did. I think the Titans were number one and the Browns were number two. And so the Titans traded back, allowed the Rams to come up to number one, and they selected Jared Goff. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia Eagles came up to number two and selected Carson Wentz in that year's draft in 2016. Both of these guys actually started out like game busters. Jared Goff went to the Super Bowl in 2018, then fell on hard times and fell out of favor with head coach Sean McVay, was traded off to the Detroit Lions. I think most of us wrote him off, or as a wise man once said, they wrote me off, but I ain't write back. Well, apparently, neither did Jared Goff. He didn't write back either. And now he's playing excellent football for the Detroit Lions. And so he's, to me, a really good NFL quarterback. And he's had some massive seasons, especially early on with the Rams. Meanwhile, Carson Wentz started off like he was going to be one of the true elite young quarterbacks in the league. And then he lost his mind, essentially. Lost his confidence, lost his mind in Philadelphia. They drafted. Really what happened is the injuries happened in years where he thought he should have been the man. They go on to win the Super Bowl, and that's really what started all of this. They win the Super Bowl in 2017 behind Nicholas Foles, and he was never the same after that. He was insecure, even though he still had another solid season after that. He was insecure, and then when they drafted Jalen Hurts, that was the final straw that broke the camel's back. He was not mentally strong enough to deal with the competition that he perceived Hurts to be, which he really wasn't. He was there for an insurance policy, not to take his spot, but he couldn't deal with that, and the rest is history. He's awful, and I think he's out of the league now. I don't think you'll see Carson Wentz in the NFL again. So one quarterback still going strong, playing really good football, the other out of the league at this point. So you get it. The trend continues. 2018 was another big-time quarterback draft. We talked about 83 and the 6 quarterbacks there, most in NFL history. We talked about the 99 draft. There were 5 quarterbacks that went there. Here's another draft. 5 quarterbacks go in the first round. You've got Mayfield. You've got Sam Darnold. You've got Josh Allen. You've got Josh Rosen. And you've got Lamar Jackson. But at the top of this draft in 2018, Baker Mayfield goes first overall to the Cleveland Browns. 2 picks later, 3rd overall, the New York Jets select Sam I See Ghost Darnold. So neither one of these guys are with the teams that drafted them. Look, we're 5 years removed from the 2018 draft. Okay. Well, we're 19, 20, 21, 22. I just wanted to make sure. We're 5 drafts removed from the 2018 draft, and neither one of those quarterbacks are still with the team that drafted them. Okay. Neither one of them even made it to year 4 with the team that drafted them. Okay. So, just go wait. Baker made it to year 4, I believe. Let's see. 18, 19, 20, 20. Yes. Mayfield made it the year 4. Darnold did not. He was traded to the Panthers in year 4 of his rookie contract. Either way, both of those guys stink. Okay. And Baker's trying to resurrect his career. He's going to get an opportunity in Tampa to do so. Meanwhile, Sam Darnold is now officially a backup quarterback in this league. He signed with the 49ers. He's now officially looked at as a veteran backup quarterback. So again, another instance where 2 quarterbacks go in the top 5, this time in the top 3, neither are successful. Now we get to 2020. And this is going to be one of those drafts that go down as potentially one of the most successful quarterback drafts in NFL history. If these guys, Tua has to stay healthy. But with Burrow and Herbert on the trajectory that they're currently on, if they stay on that, that's going to be one hell of a quarterback draft. And if Hurts in the second round, I get it, we're not talking about second round quarterbacks, but if Hurts continues on the trajectory he's on, and if Jordan Love, who's going to get the opportunity to start this year, turns out to be really good, and Green Bay generally doesn't miss at the quarterback position. Generally, they traded for Brett Favre. They identified him as a talent when he wasn't even getting clock in Atlanta. And we saw what he turned out to be. You saw what Aaron Rodgers turned out to be, and Love could turn out to be the same thing. That draft will go down as one of the best quarterback drafts in recent memory. That said, Joe Burrow goes first overall to the Cincinnati Bengals. Tua Tagovailoa goes fifth overall to the Miami Dolphins. And Justin Herbert goes sixth overall to the Los Angeles Chargers. And that is the final draft. And again, we don't know what's going to become of Tua with his, head situation, head injuries and concussions, but Burrow and Herbert are enough to carry that draft class in the first round in 2020. That's a successful group there already. We've already identified 2020 as a successful group there. And so they join, or 2020 rather, joins 1971 with Jim Plunkett, Archie Manning, and Dan Pastorini, who went 1, 2, and 3 in that draft respectively. 1995, who saw Steve McNair go third overall to the Houston Oilers and Kerry Collins go fifth overall to the expansion Carolina Panthers. 2004, Eli Manning going first overall to the San Diego Chargers and Phillip Rivers going fourth overall to the New York Giants, and then those teams swapping those two quarterbacks. In 2020, with Joe Burrow going number 1 overall to the Cincinnati Bengals, Tua Tagovailoa going fifth overall to the Miami Dolphins, and Justin Herbert going sixth overall to the Chargers, as the only 4 years since 1970 where multiple quarterbacks going in the first 7 picks, but most of these are in the first 5, but in the first 7 picks, having multiple quarterbacks be successful. 2021 is the last year where we have at least some data with quarterbacks going in the top 5 or 7, in this case, the top 3. 2021, Trevor Lawrence went first overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Zach Wilson went second overall to the New York Jets. And Trey Lance went third overall to the San Francisco 49ers. We cannot rule this class out yet because Trey Lance is still a guy that has some intrigue. But if you listen to GM John Lynch, and I don't know if you guys saw this, and I don't think we actually talked about this on the podcast, but he came out and said that if he's healthy, the starting quarterback should be Brock Purdy. Now, Kyle Shanahan did not co-sign that, but I doubt John Lynch is coming out publicly and saying that unless he already had the endorsement of his head coach. But we will see. John Lynch is entitled to his own opinion, but you'd hate to have competing factions within an organization where you've got your GM on one side and your head coach on the other. And remember, the head coach is in control because the head coach is in a coach-centric situation. He brought the GM on board. So you would think if Lynch spoke out publicly about this, then he already spoke privately with Kyle Shanahan, and they're in lockstep here. So the likelihood is Trey Lance, who the jury is still out on, probably isn't going to be the starter in San Francisco, barring, and again, we don't know because Trey Lance got injured. Same thing could happen to Purdy. He just got injured. Anything could happen. He could end up on the field and he could shine. So we can't rule out Trey Lance. But right now, it's Lawrence. Wilson is already a bust, and the jury's still out on Trey Lance. So we'll see what happens there. But again, you get my drift. You see where this is going. So now that brings us full circle to 2023 and the two quarterbacks that we think, and we can't be certain that it's going to be Stroud, Young, or Young Stroud. Will Levis could impart himself into that mix. I doubt it. It's more likely than not going to be Anthony Richardson if somebody jumps into that mix. But I feel pretty comfortable saying that it's going to be Stroud and Young in some order, whether it's Young Stroud or Stroud Young, 1 and 2. History tells us that one of those quarterbacks, if not both of them, are going to be a bust. And it's usually not because of a lack of talent. We talk about this all the time. It's not usually because of a lack of talent. I want to read a tweet that I got from my guy, Kevin the PRF. And I think he hit it right on the head. So I want to read to you what he wrote. Kevin the PRF writes, I had to watch your live last night on replay and simply loved Twin D's question about 2 quarterbacks taken in the top 5. Historically, going all the way back to 83, only the 2004 Bill, Eli and Rivers taking 1 and 4 kind of fit that description of 2 quarterbacks being successful. Every other draft has a bust taken among the top 5 if 2 QBs are taken. And so I've already laid it out for you. 95 to me is one that stands out in 2020 also, along with 1971. He went to 83, so he wouldn't have included 71. But he didn't think that McNair and Collins were both successful. I disagree. Both played in Super Bowls. Both had really long NFL careers. Both were very successful, and both were successful for multiple franchises. Collins took the young upstart Panthers to the NFC Championship game, I think, in his first season, if not his second season. I think it was 96. So it would be his second season in the league. And then he took the Giants, another franchise, to the Super Bowl. And then Kerry Collins led the Tennessee Titans to the best record in the NFL, in 2000 and 6, 7, 8? I think it was 8, with Chris Johnson leading the way. Kerry Collins was spectacular. They were 13-3 and then got bounced in their first game in the divisional round. But that's nor here nor there. Kerry Collins is not a bust. Neither is Steve McNair. Anyway, he says, the reason is simple. The reason that you don't have successful quarterbacks, go in the top 5 often. You have bad organizations picking quarterbacks. Ding, 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 ding. Our general manager, Martin Mayhew, laid that out beautifully this offseason when he talked about the reason why you see a lot of these quarterbacks come in the league and struggle is because you don't have the right infrastructure for these teams, or for these quarterbacks, rather. The reason these teams are usually up at the top of the draft, not all the time. Sometimes you get a team trading up and getting a quarterback. And it's not like rocket science why a guy like Patrick Mahomes ends up being super successful, right? He gets taken by the Bears, and maybe Mahomes stinks. Maybe he's not Mahomes. He doesn't link up with Andy Reid. He doesn't have a team that's used to winning. Maybe he's not, maybe he plays in his rookie season more likely than not. Maybe he's not Patrick Mahomes right now. But because he got traded, they traded all the way up to get him to 10, and he ends up on a team where he doesn't have to play in his rookie season. They're winning the AFC West every year. They're already a good team. Travis Kelce's already on the roster. They add Tyreek Hill. Hill was already on the team, as a matter of fact, and Travis Kelce was already on the team, and he just comes in and all he has to do is just make them better. That's usually not the case for a quarterback when you're selected 1 or 2 overall, or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. You're selected by a bad team. They earned the right to be in the position to select you number 1 overall. And because of that, there are holes on that roster. Usually that coaching staff, because they suck. Remember, they sucked so you could get there. If that same coach is there, he's probably on his last legs as the coach there. So you're going to probably have a new offensive coordinator. How many times have we heard a young quarterback have 3 or 4 different offensive coordinators in their first 4 or 5 years? How many times have we seen a young quarterback have 3 new coaches in 5 years? And you want to know why these guys aren't successful? A ridiculous offensive line with all kinds of holes in it, no run game, no true threat at receiver for these guys. I mean, look at what the Panthers just did. Now, again, I don't blame them for doing what they did, and they went out and got a quality tight end. They went out and got a quality receiver in Adam Thielen. If anything's left in the tank, they'll probably draft a receiver or 2 or 3 in this year's draft, and maybe he'll have plenty of options to get the football to. but they traded their best receiver to get into a position to draft a quarterback. And the first question we ask is, who the hell is he going to throw the football to? These are some of the dilemmas and challenges that these young quarterbacks face when they are drafted by these bad organizations. And then to top it off, a lot of times these are poorly run organizations. How many coaches has the Houston Texans had in the last 3 years? I'll wait. 3 years, 3 head coaches. In each of the last 3 years, the Texans have hired and then fired their head coach, or each of the last 2 off seasons, hired and fired a head coach. They're now on their 3rd new head coach in DeMeco Ryans. He will not be fired next year. But still, it shows you the turnover, the impatience that team has. Same with the Panthers. Impatient owner. They haven't been very good since he's taken over the franchise. They've been searching for a quarterback. They haven't built a great roster. The defense is actually pretty solid, but the offense hasn't really been any good. And they traded their best player in Christian McCaffrey, which to me, they did the right thing. If they're going to start this thing over and build anew, specifically on the offensive side of the football, they needed to get as many resources as they could get. But the Panthers have not been a good organization. And so that's how these quarterbacks fail. You get taken by bad organizations, bad football teams with coaching staffs that aren't around. There isn't any consistency around these young players, and they fail. Hopefully, that doesn't happen to these 2 new quarterbacks that come in here. And we could see a situation, and I fully expect us to see a situation where there are 3 quarterbacks taken 1, 2, 3. If it's not 1, 2, 3, it'll be 1, 2, 4. So we're going to have it again this year, where quarterbacks are taken in the top 5. And I think there's going to be 3 this year, not 2. Hopefully these guys have an opportunity to succeed. Honestly, the best destination for any quarterback to land within the top 5 is Indy. I don't love their receiver situation, but they've got a solid roster. Their offensive line isn't trash, even though it didn't play all that well last year. Their offensive line isn't trash if guys play to their full potential. They got a running back that can take some of the pressure off of a young quarterback. They've got to do something at receiver. But the young kid they drafted last year out of Cincinnati actually played well. So there's promise there, but they still need to add more pieces. But Indy is as rock solid of a destination for a young quarterback as you're going to get in the top 5, unless you include Seattle there. But they've already got their starting signal caller, at least for the next 2 seasons, in Geno Smith. But I digress. We'll see what happens. That was a nice little trip down memory lane. That actually was supposed to be memory lane and not remember when. I actually screwed that up. Don't worry about that. Anyway, good stuff, Kev. Good stuff, Twin D. Thank you for that. For that inspiration. All right. So now let's transition to the final segment of the show. And I call it Story Time with Louie Tee. So I've debated back and forth on what story I wanted to tell you guys. I got multiple stories in the chamber. I thought about telling y'all the story about the time me and my buddy got apprehended by the police for firecrackers. I'll save that for another day. I want to tell the story about the time me and one of my best friends almost got into fisticuffs over a one-on-one football game. We were out there looking like Shep and Nutso playing one-on-one football. Who the hell plays one-on-one football? You will never, ever see that again. I actually feel dumb even talking about playing one-on-one football. I mean, I felt like nobody could cover me when we were playing teams back in those days, let alone one-on-one. Like, you know how easy it is to get open one-on-one? And then one person's like the all-time quarterback, and the one guy that was quarterbacking for us couldn't throw a lick. So everything had to be short. Anyway, I'm going to tell y'all that story today. So, give you a little bit of background. I've known this particular, I got two best friends. All right. I knew this one longer than anybody else, though. I knew him since the 4th grade. And he's a character. He's a piece of work. And back in those days, kids actually went outside and played. This was before, cell phones were all the rage. And, video games were definitely in vogue in those days. But every now and again, you wanted to take a break from playing video games. You want to go outside and you want to be active. So a lot of trash talking going on within the neighborhood. Normally it was behind basketball because somebody had a basketball hoop. We go over to their house, play some ball, and we get into some shit talk. So one of these times we got into some shit talk with a dude who had a hoop, and we were kicking his ass. He didn't like it. And he was like, y'all lucky this ain't football. He was like, football? You don't want to smoke in football either. What do you in football? He's like, tell you what, I got my crew. We got 5 dudes. You go get 5 dudes. Y'all meet us out here at the field on Thursday, and we're gonna play football. Matter of fact, it was Saturday. Y'all meet us out here on Saturday. We're gonna play ball. Bet. So we went and assembled a little group of 5 dudes, or at least we thought we were gonna assemble a group of 5 dudes. And it was me, my best friend, and another dude that was a really good friend of mine in those days. He sucked at sports, but he was getting better. We were training him to be a better football player and a better athlete, but he was made to stay in the house and play video games. Anyway, so we were training him to get him better every day that week to prepare for the game. And then I had 2 other dudes that were really good friends of mine. They were supposed to come over, stay at my house Friday night. We were going to play the game Saturday. They canceled on me on Friday night. They couldn't come over and stay. And so we were down 2 dudes. We hit the dude up that was supposed to play. He couldn't come outside. He was a bitch anyway. And so his whole squad wasn't coming. So here we were the whole week. We were preparing for this shit. We were, like I told you, we was training like we was about to be playing for some big bread, like we was out here betting some money or something. This was all about pride. You know what I'm saying? The ability to talk shit. We ride the bus together. We stand at the bus stop together. We gonna see these dudes all the time. We got to be able to have bragging rights. So it's just us 3. Here we are. We prepared for this all week, and nobody can come outside. Nobody's ready to play ball. This shit sucks. And then to make matters worse, it's cold, and it starts like this little mist starts coming down. And we all looked at each other like, we probably should just go in the house. But me and my best friend was like, hell no. We prepared for this shit. We ready to play. We playing some football today. And he had the bright idea, how about me and you just play one-on-one? I was like, all right. I wasn't going to turn down an opportunity to be competitive. I told you, I'm a competitive junkie. If there's one fatal flaw about me, it's that I'm too damn competitive sometimes for my own good. Anyway, I wasn't turning down the opportunity to get the competitive juices flowing. So we go to the field, and this is like the worst field. If any of you know Crown Point in Norfolk, there's a field off to the side of Green Plain Road, going back around towards the side streets. It's a big field. I don't know if that exists anymore. I haven't been to Crown Point. They've changed the whole neighborhood. They got a whole apartment complex in the back. Everything's changed out there. Anyway, it was a big field that we used to go, and there was a fort out there too. It was a big, this wooded area. You can go back there. We used to do stupid shit, light stuff on fire, do dumb shit that kids do that you shouldn't do. Shit caught on fire, trucks had to come, all that stupid shit. I got stories to tell. Anyway, This is the worst field. Potholes everywhere that you can't see. I don't care how many times you've played at this field, you do not know where the potholes reside. If you want to break your leg or you want to severely sprain your ankle, go play football in that field. Again, we did not care. We were kids. So, on this particular day, some numbskull decided to park their big ass Astro van in the field. Who does that? Nobody ever parked their vehicle on the field. Like, nobody ever did that. Somebody decided to do it that day. So it was sort of kind of in the way, but not really. You had to be special to, have that be in the way. So anyway, we get into our intense one-on-one game. Right? Again, we on some Shep and Nutso shit. Talking shit. It's one-on-one football. It ain't one-on-one basketball. It's one-on-one football with a guy playing all-time quarterback that can barely throw. This is garbage. Trust me. Anyway, I'm kicking his ass, because I can get open, but he really can't get open. He's more of a defensive guy. He was a defensive dude. I was an offensive guy. So it was advantage me. I'm up like 2 touchdowns on him, and he's getting pissed now because I'm talking shit. That's what I do. I talk shit. That's my thing. So I'm giving him work. I'm talking shit. And so we were playing. It was like pseudo tackle. We were playing tackle, but most of the plays ended with somebody getting grabbed, not wanting to go down. But at this point, all right, I'm down. That type of thing. Some of those plays ended with us someone actually getting tackled, but most plays ended with, hey, I got you. And you realize I'm not going anywhere. I'm down. Okay. So in the heat of battle, I'm talking shit. He's down. He realizes he's probably not going to win the game. I run a slant on him. I get inside of him. I catch the football. He grabs my hoodie from behind, and I swear he turned into the Incredible Hulk on this particular play. He grabs me, swings me around 3 times in a circle, and then launches me into the van. I mean, I get a face full of van, right? I don't even have enough time to put my hands up and defend myself. I go crashing into this van. Boom! Ball goes flying. I go flying back. I jump up. I'm pissed off. I'm ready to fight. I'm cussing all kinds of F-bombs and this, that, and FU and this, that, and I'm in his face. I push him. He pushes me. We ready to get to fisticuffs over a damn one-on-one football game when we were supposed to be on teams 5-on-5 against another whole group of players. We were never supposed to be playing against each other in the first place. And if not for the other guy that was there, that was our quote-unquote all-time quarterback, getting in the middle of us and separating us, we would have fought. I was ready to fight. He would have been ready to fight because my best friend, he was a bad dude in those days. He would get in fights for no reason other than he just felt like effing somebody up. We used to joke about how he had a record in terms of like a boxing record because he got in so many fights. So he would have been down for the action. He wanted all the smoke. So we'd have been out there fighting. And if he wasn't there, who would have broke it up? There's nothing worse than a fight with 2 people with nobody there to break it up. And then you end up just stop fighting because you just both tired. That's what would have happened. Because, really when fights happen when you're that age, there may be 1 good blow that gets thrown, maybe 2. And then it's a headlock. And now you're rolling around and it's just chicanery, stupid shit going on. It's not really a fight anymore. It's just y'all rolling around on top of each other. So it would have probably escalated to that. When I tell you my face was on fire, face was on fire. Like I didn't speak to him for like 3 months after that. I was so pissed. And it was awkward because that's my boy. You know what? He lived right up the block. We ride the same bus. I see him at school every day. And it was just awkward not talking to him. But every time I saw him, in my mind, it was on sight. Like, I just want to steal on him. I just want to punch him in the face. My face was on fire for like 3 days. And every time my face would hurt, it just made me want to punch him in the face that much more. But eventually he apologized. He knew he was wrong. He apologized. It was all good. We still joke about that to this day, about the time he threw me into the van and tried to take me out. And he always said, it was a mistake, man. I ain't mean to do it. No, the hell you didn't have a mistake. You swung me around 3 goddamn times like the Incredible Hulk and then launched my ass. You let me go at the exact time you knew I was going to contact that damn van and I wouldn't have enough time to protect my damn self. He knew what he was doing. He knew the van was right there. The whole time we playing tackle, and not one time did he do a move like that. But anyway, that's his story. He's sticking to it, and that's my story, and that's story time with Louie Tee. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie Tee, here on the 325th installment of the Louie Tee Network podcast. I do have a super chat. Before we get out of here, I want to knock this out real quick. This is from my guy, Big Money Sonny. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, we rocking with the new top 5 dead or alive. Salutes to the NHO gang. Let's go. You know what it is. Shout out to my guy, Joe Rockhead, who sent me a picture of him rocking a new HOU order bucket hat. It was a dope pick. The hat is dope. And I posted it on IG. And so shout out to my guy, Joe Rockhead, for repping the squad. Y'all know what it is. New HOU order. It's the takeover, baby. Y'all know what it is. So appreciate you, Big Money Sonny. Wilfredo Elias, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, thoughts on Jack Campbell. He said, chances he's there for us in the second round. I really think he's the inside linebacker that could elevate our defense. I think there's a chance he could be there. Linebacker isn't one of those positions that teams are going to be looking to snatch up players. It could be a situation where no linebacker goes in the first round this year. Okay. So he could definitely be there at 47. The likelihood is he's not, but I don't think it's like no way, he's there, or that I'd put it at like 20%. I think it's a 50-50 chance Jack Campbell is available at 47. Because again, the linebacker position, I think it's one of those positions where late second round, you'll start to see some backers go into the third. And I think that's where you'll really start to see linebackers be pounced on, is into the third round. I think that's where the real value in this year's draft class is, at the linebacker position, is in the third round. So I think Campbell potentially could be there at 47. I wouldn't be shocked if he was. Got another super chat. This is from my guy, Big Money Sonny. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy, Big Money Sonny, writes, saw the pick, Lou. Big shout out to Joe Rockhead. He's just Joe Rockhead now. He doesn't go by Joe Rockhead J. But anyway, he says, back then they didn't want me. Now I'm hot. They all on me. I said, you know what it is, man. Mike Jones. Who? Mike Jones. Y'all know who it is. Hey, anyway. Appreciate that, Big Money Sonny. And shout out again to my guy, Joe Rockhead J, for copping the merch and sending me the pick. So with that said, I'm going to glide to the side and allow you guys to enjoy your weekend. I think for those of you who are interested, the Masters is taking place. I'm not a golf guy, so I could care less. NBA regular season comes to a close this weekend, and then we will know what the play-in situations are. So that will happen this weekend. For those of you who are XFL watchers, that takes place as well this weekend. And baseball is getting, and so is hockey. Hockey's getting into full throat. They're about to hit their postseason, and baseball is now underway and into their second week of the season. So got a super chat from Max on the beat. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Max writes, I had a similar experience in high school. We was playing ball and this dude was talking crap, and I beat him on a route and caught a one-handed ball in double coverage for the tutty. That's always the best revenge you can ever get on somebody that's talking shit, is to just do them, right? To just make a play on them. What they gonna say then? Can't say nothing after I make this play on you. You know, same thing. You playing football, playing basketball, baseball, pitcher talking shit. Best way to get revenge is to get a knock on them, right? You playing basketball, dude talking shit. Either lock his ass down. He'll probably claim you fouled him, but what you gonna say when I put buckets on your head? What you gonna say then, right? Same thing in football. Dude talking shit. If he's covering you, bless him. If he's trying to get open, shut him down. What you gonna say then, right? That's always the best revenge. And when they can't get it, you know, the official way, they try to cheat, or they try to go about it in a non-conventional way, you know, and that's when problems arise. Or at least it almost did for me and my guy. So anyway, I digress, man. You guys enjoy your weekend. Thanks for the super chat, Max. Greatly appreciate you. Shout out to everybody that kicked it with the kid on this Friday afternoon, man. Could have been anywhere. And Max says he stayed shut after I got the tutty. That's how it goes, man. What you gonna say? Not a damn thing. It's hard to keep talking shit when you're getting your brains bashed in. Some people do. You know, I'm one of them. And my team sucks every year, it seems like. And I really shouldn't have anything to say, but I can't help myself. That's who I am. But anyway, I digress. It's different, though, when I can control the outcome. Then you got to shut up, you know, when you're getting worked. When you don't actually control the outcome, I keep talking shit. Why not? I ain't got shit to do with it. But if I control the outcome, like if we playing spades, I'm here, man. You just gonna keep hearing me talk. Anyway, I digress. You guys enjoy your weekend. We'll reconvene on the other side of the weekend, and look forward to chopping up with you. And we will really start to get heavy into the draft content as if we haven't already, but we will really start to get into it heavy next week. So look forward to you guys having a great weekend, and then coming back re-energized, revitalized, and ready to talk some draft. Have a good one. God bless. Have a great day.
Louie Tee Network.